Welcome to the Plant Cunning Podcast,
where we explore a relationship to plants, other people, and the mysteries of nature.
Coming to you from the high Allegheny Plateau in central New York.
We are your hosts, AC Staubel
and Isaac Hill.
Today on the Plant Cunning Podcast, we are thrilled to have Crystal Dawn on the show. She's an herbalist and doctor and healer and traveler and writer and mother and just loads of different roles in the world, which we'll hear more about. But how are you today, Crystal Dawn?
I am doing very well. How are you, Isaac and AC, today?
We're doing awesome.
Yeah, we're doing great. It's
beautiful
hot again.
Day.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing particularly awesome because here I am doing one of my most favorite things to do in the world, which is informing and inspiring and empowering people to take better care of themselves and to enhance their longevity, their resilience, their well-being. So thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. So we have a traditional first question on the show, and it is, how did you come to the plant path?
I came to that plant path right after I completed my residency in family medicine in Southern California in San Bernardino. And even though I had, all the right tribal affiliations, I was a member of the AMA, American Medical Association, and the American Academy of Family Physicians. And, I had all that. I felt like there was something about healing that I had not been taught that was still hidden to me. And I grew up in New York City, but I've always been inspired by nature and the outdoors and the idea of herbs and farming. And so that led me as a young doctor to read the fine print in the back of an herbal magazine where they were inviting for herbal apprenticeships. And so I made that phone call. We were going to meet. It was with Chatoya de la Torre, who was a student of Rosemary Gloudstar. And she had an herb farm / school up in Auburn, California, and I was down in Southern California. And the energy, when I made that first inquiry that came over the phone, it was like, yeah, this is my path. I want more of this in my life. And it has brought me to get to be colleagues and sisters with some of the most amazing healers on this planet, my sisters and brothers who call themselves plant healers and herbalists. So it transformed my life for the better. It was definitely the path that was calling me. Yeah.
I love it when that happens, when you make that phone call and there's just something buzzing in the air that is leading you down the path that you're meant to do. It's really
something great. Buzzing in the air that's giving you that big yes, this is it. And I signed up for a whole year of coming up 1 week in a month for a year. Sight unseen. I hadn't met her. I hadn't seen her. I didn't know who my classmates were. I could just tell that this was my path. And I think about all the amazing people like yourself, like Megan, like some of my priestess path sisters and other herbalist sisters who have a front row seat in my life, and think how different my life would have been if I had not made that simple phone call and then said yes to it. Just how enriching it has been for my life. So, one of the things about embracing herbalism is that it gave the glory back to Mama Earth. It took it out of the hands of big pharma, and it gave the healing back to Mother Earth, and it helped nature to come more alive for me. That I could walk in the woods and find plants where their roots or their flowers or their leaves could be used for healing or used for food. And it helped to strengthen my reverence for Gaia. and all the gifts that she gives us. And it helped me to understand that even though I have this great toolbox full of, pharmaceuticals and surgical referrals and other things like that, that I can make it even bigger, and I could pull out this root, I could pull out this leaf, I could pull out this bowl of soup. I could pull
Yeah.
out this
Yeah.
spice.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes soup is the best medicine.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice to have that, well-rounded toolkit, I guess, of the Western medical practice as well as the plant medicine practice. And it's kind of a shame that that most Western medical doctors don't get trained in plant medicine at all
Anymore. Yeah.
anymore.
But has there been any tension between those two parts of your healing path?
Well, if there has been, my colleagues don't say anything negative to my face. Actually, I kind of laugh because I think back to those early days when I completed my first apprenticeship, because I did several, because I really wanted to reinforce the information and I loved being in that community.
Yeah.
And so I remember giving advice to my patients who would come in for those chronic headaches or insomnia or anxiety, which often was lifestyle related. And I would give them advice, which included some medicinal plants. And I would say, shh, now I'm going to tell you this, but it's just between me or you. But these are some plants, some herbs, some teas that can help. And I hesitated to put it in the chart. And then I felt like, as I got more and more confident in it, I felt like I was out of integrity. And I'm like, I don't want to be a closet herbalist anymore. I don't want to do that. So I wrote up a mission statement to my colleagues, to the doctors who I was sharing this practice with in Southern California, and put it in each of their mailboxes. It was back in the 90s, so we didn't have, I had just finished residency, so we didn't have we didn't all have emails yet. So I put it in their mailboxes, and I was blown away by the support that they gave me in the hallways, the replies that they sent to me. They were actually relieved to have someone in the practice that was embracing this. And they already knew that, they already trusted me. And they knew that if someone came in with a bellyache, that I knew when I could prescribe, I could suggest chamomile, fennel, peppermint tea, and when it was that that person needed to see a surgeon. So they were actually very supportive. Yes, he sent me a lot of patients my way who were so inclined. Yeah.
That's really awesome. So can you tell us just a little bit more about what you do on the day-to-day now as a doctor and herbalist?
As a medicine woman.
Medicine woman?
What?
Yes, yes. Yeah, so I do many different things. I am enjoying the freedom and flexibility of exploring this world, this planet, and cultures, and discovering different ways of being in the world that I didn't even know I didn't know. So I consider myself a nomadic healer in that I bring my healing options with me wherever I am in the world. I'm supporting myself these days by doing emergency medicine in the allopathic realm. And also, I have a small boutique practice that is pretty much referral only, where I see people online and we have a more functional medicine approach to healing. So my herbal background helped me to slide right into functional medicine, which was a group of physicians who were my tribe of physicians who already acknowledged that big pharma had hijacked our profession, and that we pretty much were taught in medical school to be their puppets, and that there were many other aspects of healing in food, in movement, in meditation, in stress management, in detoxification, that were natural and holistic and can either prevent or reverse dis-ease. And so that is my approach to this small boutique online practice that I have. And I also do workshops and retreats um, for one-on-one, small ones, and then group ones as well. So the most recent of those that's coming up is called the Healer Retreat in collaboration with Wellness Wellness Collaborative of Boston. It's going to be in Cape Cod, and it's happening. It might be too late by the time this comes out. Yeah, it's happening the 26th to 28th of August. Oh, but then again, it's going to happen in October. So this is one that's designed for other herbalists and hands-on healers. You could be a doctor, a nurse, a massage therapist, just hands-on healers. We need to take care of ourselves, yes. And we're specifically reaching out to the BIPOC community in that retreat. Mm-hmm. And then there's other retreats that I get to do with Megan up in the beautiful Adirondacks, and you can stay tuned for that too. So, yeah, with breath work and and any detoxes and things like that. So that's what I do these days. Yeah. Okay. And I write. So I have a great blog out with respects to the microbiome. Also, that's available on that's available, and I'm going to be putting one out soon. I think it's going to be on neuroplasticity. So that's the next one. Yeah.
Exciting. So yeah, Megan is a mutual friend of ours that lives in the Adirondacks and has the Bark Eater Inn with her partner Tyler. And I'm excited for her Radiant Moon gathering that's coming up in September as well. It's a women's gathering. So you've done breath work and things like that there. So yeah, just to give some context about who Megan is. But did you have another question?
Well, to follow the thread between like being an emergency room doctor and not just an herbalist, but an herbalist who sees things from a spiritual perspective. Do you have any like advice for people when to use Western medicine, when to use herbs? Like when people are coming into you, how do you tell off the bat? I mean, I know herbalists, can't, diagnose
yeah.
Or treat. But it's important to know, like how what's better for them with allopathic medicine, what's better for the herbs.
Okay, so I use herbs. I have a blurring of where herbalism begins and where food as medicine begins. I blend it all into a unique modality that does include using traditional herbs, usually in the forms of tinctures or foods. I'm sorry, let me back up. Usually in the form of an herbal tea or in food. So I see a continuum along that line. It's interesting. I see herbalism / food as medicine. It is a modality that can be used to prevent or to reduce chronic dis-ease and acute exacerbations of symptoms of chronic dis-ease, and then to prevent it in the long run. I often find that in emergency medicine that people need more support to understand how this is helping and what it is that they need to do, because there's a whole lifestyle change that goes with it. We call this Nutrigenomics, and that is how our nutrition, how the foods that we choose, how the foods that we don't choose affect our genetic potential. And our genetic potential is related to aging or inflammaging. We can be 10 years older or 10 years younger than our chronological age. And a lot of that has to do with our lifestyle. Um, and so that's where the retreats come in, because I have people for a concentrated period of time and I can give them the support that they need for that. In emergency medicine, I often plant the seed, and I'll tell them. And sometimes people get it. And sometimes people kind of just go, well, can I just get that prescription for my depression? Yeah, I hear that perhaps there is an inflammatory, but I really just want that prescription. So I meet them where they're at. I plant the seed. I let them know that there are things that they can do to get off of this prescription, that it does have its side effects. There are a lot more natural things that are more empowering. And I meet them where they're at.
Yeah, that's very important. And I like the idea of doing the retreats, because a lot of these things are habit patterns, and habits are kind of hard to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what
Exactly. Yeah.
but that's the most, if we have free will, I mean, I think it's in the ability to change your habits, because that kind of like changes your trajectory. But so what are some of the kinds of things that you see most often pop up? Like not enough fiber, like eating too many foods that are inflammatory, like say if someone has a slight allergy or an intolerance to dairy or wheat or something, or like not enough vitamins. I mean, there's a lot of problems with the standard American diet, but where do you start with helping somebody?
Great question. Thank you for asking me that. A lot depends on their level of motivation. People who come into my boutique practice tend to be more motivated than someone who was just fortunate enough to get me randomly in the emergency department. But that said, they are still there for me to inspire and to inform and to let them know. I like to go by the 5 R's, and I'm going to give you, when I am doing something, whether I have you in private practice or in the ER. The 5 R's, first of all, begins with removing or reducing. So we are going to remove the amount of processed foods that's in your diet, or at least reduce it. So this is anything that is this is most things that's in a box or in a package or in the frozen food section or in a can. And at the very least, at the very minimum, in an unmotivated individual, someone who's really just looking for that pill, that secret pill, because we kind of live in a fast food society, and many people are not quite ready to take personal responsibility for their choices and their well-being. So I plant the seed. Can you eat at least 10 different servings of vegetables and fruits and herbs and spices a day? And you can get it in your salad, you can get it in your smoothie, you can get it in your stir fry, you can make tea. And I want you to drink 2 liters of water a day, at least. So that is the bare minimum of where I start. And someone who's more motivated, they get the whole 5 R's. And so that is to remove processed foods. And in those people who are less motivated, my hope is that they're so busy trying to get in the 10 servings of the vegetables and the fruits, preferably organic and GMO free, that these whole food processes, that it kind of crowds out their ability to take in too many processed sugars and processed foods, because they've committed to getting in 10 different servings a day, 30 different sources of it a week. And it can come from herbs, it can come from tea, it can come from the whole plant food, all of that. It could come from beans, it could come from whole grains. It could be roots. There's It could be flowers. There's innumerable sources to get the whole plant foods in, and it can be yummy and it can be delicious. And someone who is more motivated, who says, you know, I really want to get off this prescription medicine. I don't like the side effects of this antihypertensive, antidepressant, um, um, cardiac medicines, what have you. Then we go into the whole 5 R's, because what we know now from a functional medicine approach is that, which is very different than what I was taught in medical school. Because in medical school, we were taught, most of my colleagues were taught to cut up the body. So you had the cardiac system, and you had the pulmonary system, the lungs, cardiac, the heart, the GI system, the gastrointestinal system. You had dermatology, you had immunology, you had gynecology, you had, and everything was divided up. And now, from this functional medicine approach, and we realized that the root of all of these very diverse expressions of dis-ease, the root cause is a unhealthy, out of balance, inflammatory response that we are seeing more and more of due to our modern way of living, which puts us in contact with all kinds of chemicals and things that our great grandparents did not have to be exposed to, and that the human body was not evolved to be exposed to. And so our immune system, our detoxification system is getting overwhelmed and confused, and we're seeing an advent of so many chronic conditions as a result of it. So I got the 5 R's. It's remove or reduce. It is then replace. It is repopulate. It is to rebalance. And there's one more right before that. It'll come to me in a minute. Yeah, there's 5 R's.
Okay. Yeah.
So repopulate meaning
the
microbiome?
Correct.
Yeah. Nice. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a really important point too. There's so many like environmental toxins, like just in the even if you eat all organic and you eat everything well, there's still the air, there's still the water,
plastics,
there's microplastic, heavy metals. It's hard to get away. I mean, in some I'm not sure. I haven't made up my mind on EMFs yet, but that's another thing that our grandparents didn't have to deal with. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and I can see how that would definitely
tax our system.
Yeah. So you want to eat it, you put it in as much as you can. That's good. So you don't have to tax it as much. Reduce that taxation to the lowest amount. Yeah,
exactly. We want to give our body the nourishment and the nutrients that it needs so it can effectively deal with what it must deal with. And if we just remove or reduce that which we know, and a lot of that is the food that we put in our mouth and the things we put in our skin and the stuff that we bring into our homes. And we have influence over that once we know what it is. And we can reduce the amount of toxic exposure. And then that other exposure that comes from breathing the air because we're going across town and we're stuck in a traffic jam, or, because we overnighted in a hotel and there was no other choice and there was some off-gassing as a result of recent maintenance, or perhaps the air freshener that they were using, that our body can better deal with it because it's not being because we've removed a lot of it in, first of all, in our dietary choices to eat organic, to give ourselves the phytonutrients that the body needs and our genetic program needs in order to effectively deal with the other toxins that we have less influence over. in exercise, in sleep. All of these things help to improve the resilience of our body's ability to come back to its center point with health and wellness.
Yeah, it's the rebalance. And that's another crucial point too that I don't even think about because it's been so long since I've done any of this stuff. But like air purifiers and deodorants and certain sunscreens, shampoos, like there are all sorts of
clothing
chemicals in those that are not necessarily gonna be good for you.
Right. Exactly. And so if we must use a moisturizer, I don't have a problem with that. Why not just put olive oil or coconut oil on our skin?
Yeah.
Or shea butter. You don't have to use the stuff with all the parabens and the other chemicals that help it to be an emulsifier. And
yeah, one of AC's things that she makes the most is salves, and they're just I love them. They're so much better than any lotion or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all, and it has herbs infused in it, so then you're getting good stuff on your skin instead of all the other stuff. Sorry.
So back to just like the chronic conditions, what are some of the main chronic conditions that you see? And can you speak a little bit about a little bit more about like how you might go about guiding someone through their healing process?
Thank you for asking that. That's a great question. So the common conditions in this Western lifestyle of ours that people come to me about is diabetes, adult onset, although juvenile onset is increasing as well. It's hypertension, it's cardiac problems and high cholesterol. There's cancer is growing in frequency. There's depression and anxiety. There's lots of autoimmune conditions also that are growing in frequency as well. And even though the expressions historically have been thought to be very, very diverse, the root cause of all of those is like an out of control, low grade smoldering inflammation in the body. And then depending on that individual, it might manifest as high blood pressure. It could manifest as depression. It could manifest as senile dementia or Alzheimer's 30 years from now or 50 years from now. We're showing now that, so Alzheimer's and Parkinson's is inflammation of the nervous system. Diverticulitis is inflammation in the colon tract. Depression also is a disturbance of the gut-brain connection and inflammation in the nervous system. Heart disease starts as inflammation in the vascular system. Cancer, there are malignant transformations happening all the time. And our body's immune system, the job of it is to survey. And when a cell that might be exposed to an environmental toxin becomes no longer self, becomes a cancer cell, the immune system responds to it and eliminates it before it has a chance to multiply and to grow and to become a tumor with symptoms. So this is all part of a normal functioning, healthy immune system. Everyone has had a malignant transformation. Those with a healthy, solid immune system have had, it gets taken care of and eliminated, and we don't miss a step. We don't miss a step. So, so the root cause of all of those are inflammation, and this comes from modern exposure to pollution, to GMO, to BPA, which is in the plastics everywhere, to microplastics. We're finding microplastics in our bloodstream and in our plasma now, in almost in people all over the world. And there's a host of other chemicals, aluminum, from putting aluminum foil on our foods and heating it, the flame retardants that's in the furniture to keep it from, and in our clothing to keep it from bursting into flames when inhaled is a toxin. So there's neurotoxins, and so inflammation, it's a nuanced response. We want some inflammation, we want a healthy, balanced immune system. We don't want it overwhelmed with taking care and trying to neutralize the processed foods and the sugar and the refined sugar that we're taking in. We don't want it overwhelmed with that so that, it can't take care of a downstream problem, which might be the hardening of the arteries or a malignant transformation of a cell that's happened in the body. So, so we remove those toxins. That's the first thing in people who are women, and it's a journey because there's layers and layers of toxins that we're exposed to. No one can live in modern life, like you said, and not have some exposure. And then we replace it with in diet. Like 80% of it we can influence with diet, what we put on our skin and what we bring into our homes. So so we go for a whole plant-based, real food, organic diet. Do the best that you can. If you don't have organic in your community, then you go tell your grocer that you want organic. And every time you go in there and you buy your conventional tomato, which is your best choice that you can make, or your conventionally grown oregano or basil or rosemary, you stop in and tell the grocer that you want organic. They are here to make money. And you get your friends to do the same thing and other members of your family to do the same thing. And it will start out as a small organic produce section, and it will grow and grow and grow and grow. So as more and more people respond to it and buy it. So you can have an influence. You can also support your organic farms and and your organic co-op. And you can also grow your own food, which is really the highest vibrational food, or gathering or doing wild crafting in the forest and in the fields for your food. We're finding that plants that are stressed because they have to emit their own phytochemicals to protect them from being eaten by bugs and insects, those offer the most bang for our buck in nutrigenomics and the ability for our diet to positively influence our genetic expression. So we want organic. They have more of the good stuff in them.
And especially
whether it's a vegetable, a spice, what have you. Yes, a fruit, a bean, a whole grain.
Yeah.
And I found that like one of the easiest things for people if they want to start growing is greens, especially like dark leafy greens, because they have so much bang for their buck. They're easy to grow. They have got lots of the fiber as well as the phytochemicals. So they're also one of the easier things to forage, as long as you're not foraging in places with high pollution.
Yes, and that they've been eaten a little bit by the insects, first of all, shows that they're edible and yummy, and also lets you know that that plant will have an enhanced phytonutrient spectrum to offer you. And it is that is medicinal for the body. Absolutely. And fiber is another thing. Most Americans, do not get enough fiber. In fact, hardly any do. And it's recommended, I think, like up to 30 grams of fiber a day is what's recommended. I think for men, maybe 25. For women, we need 50 grams of fiber, y'all. Fiber is sexy. I'm here to tell you that. We see it in the whole grains. We see it in beans.
Mushrooms.
We see it in mushrooms. Thank you, sis. Yes. We need to get that fiber in because that fiber is food for our microbiome. And when we don't take in enough fiber, then the bacteria that were sent here to enhance our well-being in our intestinal tract, they feed off of that fiber. If we're just giving it processed junk foods, then it turns and it begins to feed in the lining of our intestines. And that's where leaky gut comes in. It literally eats us from the inside out. So
Oof.
we want to take in those chia cells, those chia seeds, chia
Yeah.
pudding. We want the oatmeal. We want the flax. We want the marshmallow and the licorice root, um, and um, and all of these other demulcent type, because they help to restore the lining. They help to create a home for beneficial microbiome, and they in turn give off short chain fatty acids. And short chain fatty acids are one of the most anti-inflammatory molecule known to man. And when I say anti-inflammatory, I mean anti-aging, anti-inflammaging. They reverse chronic disease. They help to give us more vitality and more resilience to those toxins that we have not been able to eliminate exposure to. So we want to take in fiber, and we want the short chain fatty acids. Yeah.
And isn't there very little or no fiber in dairy and meat products?
There's
And so
dairy, meat.
that's like the mainstay of the American diet is like meat and potatoes or burgers.
Also
and
white bread, you know,
yeah,
there's no
as much fiber in bread. And
but it's also it's also interesting is some people like do eat more meat and that actually helps their inflammation. So I think it depends also on the person. Have you found that to be the case? Like the individual?
I want to be clear to say that I'm not saying that I think we should have a plant-based diet, but I'm not necessarily, to me, that means that you can have some meat that works for you. And I think that we all need to be kind of tuned in to what works for our body. As we begin to become less toxic, we are more open and available to the nuances of our well-being. Our bodies begin to communicate with us, our hearts and our minds communicate with us, and we kind of know if this is a good thing for us or a bad thing for us. One of the things though about meat is that, especially beef, it's hard on our planet. And we are in a crisis situation right now when it comes to our planet and global warming. And sometimes I even wonder if a lot of the depression and anxiety is an existential anxiety and depression from the stress that we've put on Mother Earth. I believe it's all to some level interchangeable and related. So when we do meat, when we do fish, I think it should be the highest quality that you can get, meaning preferably not conventionally grown, and preferably they've been fed, either just allowed to graze or fed organically, or have it be game. And I think a small amount as a condiment, as a condiment to the meal.
And it's also like the grass-fed beef also is a lot, especially if you're doing something like rotational grazing. It can actually be beneficial for the environment, but
the way we do it
with the large feedlots and everything it also is much healthier for you, because you're getting a lot of those omega-3s and everything through the fat in there. But I think another crucial aspect is the nihilism that comes from the modern materialist worldview. That has a lot to do, as when you're listening to those chronic conditions, you put in their depression and anxiety and like that. Like I personally know more people who have died from suicide or from drug overdose than anything else in my age set, in my where I'm, so that kills people. It's not in the same way, but it really does. And I think a lot of those people are more sensitive, and they have no way to handle the overload of emotion. And
it's not, we have not been a culture that has honored empaths, those who would be more tuned into the distress and the dis-ease on this planet, and who and nor have we been a culture that has honored so much creativity or spiritual growth. We're kind of like a do, produce, materialistic. And a lot of people, a lot of children, um, they know that it's not right, that something's wrong, but they can't put their finger on it. And there's nothing that I applaud about fitting in with a culture that is full of dis-ease itself. We have to empower one another and support one another to kind of see through the veil and to set that example. That's what I like about my herbalist and my farming community. And so many more medical doctors are also realizing that we need to be the model of wellness and community activists. We need to kind of live it and breathe it and be it and model it so that other people are more likely to embrace it. And it's all included. I see in the emergency department so many children who are cutting themselves, who are depressed, who are on these mental health drugs, teenagers. And I've been camp doctor for camps in the summertime, and there's so many kids on ADHD and Ritalin, and I didn't see this when I first came out of medical school, you know, and antidepressants and autoimmune stuff for asthma, and I didn't see all of this, like 50% of the kids being on some pharmaceutical. So there's a crying out. There's a crying out, and if only we had the eyes to see it and to listen and to adjust ourselves before, while there's still time.
Right.
Part of the 5R lifestyle, I'm gonna say it in its entirety now, is to remove, to reduce, number 2 is to replace, number 3 is to re-inoculate, number 4 is to repair. And that's where a lot of the herbs can come in, and the adaptogens can come in. And then the final one is rebalance. And in balance, we have meditation.
Yeah.
And we have breath work. And we have adaptogens can be part of repair or rebalance. But to me, that's a foundation of bringing wellness. And as people, you know, ideally, all of this would be happening at the same time in motivated individuals. But as they begin to take more and more responsibility and they start to feel better, then it becomes easier to do more things. And that's why retreats are so powerful too, because you can remove someone from their environment, you can immerse them in this new lifestyle, spending time outdoors in nature, grounding, nature bathing, meditation, yoga, tai chi, movement, hiking, whatever, breath work. And they can see the difference that it's making in their lives because they emerge feeling better and more resilient and rejuvenated. Yeah.
Yeah, they got to find that thing or those things that, you know, they're starting to feel and see the changes, and then that gives them momentum to keep going with their habit changing, habit reforming.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and your environment often it creates who you are. Like the people you hang out with the most make your personality. You know, you become like the 5 people you hang out with the most. You know, so it's the same thing if you have that time to like recalibrate, being in the environment where these like a higher level of health is happening, then you can readjust to that.
I agree with you so much, brother. Our environment, we are communal beings. We were bred as a species to be a part of community. And you want to surround yourself with people who get you, who are excited to see you, who exalt in you. And ideally, you would reciprocate that. And you do want those who remind you of the best that you are and have those higher health habits that create greater resistance and well-being. I mean, you know, your drinking buddies, our drinking buddies, you know, alcohol's a neurotoxin. So maybe we're just going to hang out with them once a year,
Yeah.
but not, but we do need to be very selective. And then as we begin to model our own wellness and improvement, then it makes it easier for them to make changes as well.
That's
So,
true.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really crucial.
Yeah. So, when you were talking about inflammation before, I was just sort of like thinking like, well, like what exactly is inflammation? Like you talked about it a little bit, but I was wondering if you could just like deep dive a little bit more into what inflammation does in our bodies, how, like what exactly it's caused by. You did mention it a little bit, but like how does it work and why is it the seat of like of chronic disease?
Okay. So, what did I not tell you before? So, what I want to tell you is that our immune systems are crucial. And our immune systems are located, 80% of our immune system is located in the large intestines, just on the outside of the gut lining. And it is here where the immune system becomes trained to do its job. And what and so and so I want to just backtrack for a minute. So when you have like a cut, for example, and you notice that it's a little red and it's a little warm and it's a little swollen and it's a little tender as it heals, that's normal, healthy inflammation. That is what is needed. There's an increased blood supply to the area. That's why it's red. That's why it's warm. And that helps to bring in the cells that are going to repair the skin, repair the subcutaneous tissue, help to prevent anything that could potentially cause an infection from happening. So there's some white blood cells, there's some repair cells happening, all brought on through the immune system. So inflammation is crucial and needed. Then there's other forms of inflammation like asthma, and there's gout, and then there's autoimmune conditions. There's urticaria and allergic reactions to foods and things like that. And that is when inflammation has begun to be out of control. And then even more downstream from that now, we're getting these other conditions like hypertension, like coronary artery disease, like cancer, like Alzheimer's disease, which are inflammation in different parts of the body downstream as a result of chronic low-grade inflammation. So the immune system is located in the small intestine. That's where it goes to do its training. And you've heard of this term called leaky gut. And leaky gut is brought on from the modern American diet, the standard American diet, the fat diet, eating a lot of processed foods, a lot of refined sugar, low in carbs, all that fast food stuff, all that hamburger helper, tuna helper, all that blah, 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 that hot dogs, hamburgers, white bread, all that. And so that's low in fiber. And we already talked about the benefits of fiber. So when there is low fiber diet, now the bacteria, which is ubiquitous, which is really friendly, healthy bacteria, if we would nourish it with the whole foods, and the best thing that we can do to get a good microbiome is to choose to eat at least 10 different servings of plant-based foods a day, and to take in 50 grams to strive for 50 grams of fiber a day. So the bacteria that is here to be our friend has nothing to eat. So it begins to eat the junctions of our intestinal tract.
Right.
And then it causes leaky gut because it's eating the junctions. It's literally eating the glue that holds the cells together. And this cell wall is just 1 or 2 cell layers thick. So it doesn't take much. And then on the other side of that is our immune system that is there to be trained to begin to say what is me and what is not me, to do its job. And so when it is being exposed to partially digested food-like products, because I don't know if you can even call processed foods food, then it gives the wrong information to the immune system, and the immune system gets confused, and it cannot so much and it's bogged down. It's trying to help the body to get what good nutrients there are in that food, and at the same time, it's trying to slow down the inflammatory response that is happening from the leaky gut. And so downstream, there's not enough of the immune system to help to protect our arteries, to help to protect our brain, to help to protect other aspects that that need to be protected, because the whole the whole general inflammatory state of the body has been heightened. So, so we do ourselves a disservice to our immune system, which is really critical. And then there's the whole gut-brain connection through the vagus nerve. So if inflammation is happening in the gut, then we've got leaky gut, then there's inflammation happening in the brain, and we end up with leaky brain. And this hypothesis has been used to explain why there's so much more depression and anxiety and dementia and Parkinson's disease and other neurodegenerative things that we didn't see 100 years ago.
Huh. So the foods actually are affecting the depression too. It's not just the spiritual malaise and the everything. Like there actually is leaky brain. Wow. So this actually, we're almost out of time here, but I would like to kind of like summarize a little bit and add in a couple things. So like we talked to Matthew Wood last winter and he about his book on the extracellular matrix. And what you're talking about seems to me like to tie into that really crucially. Like the extracellular matrix is what holds the cells together, and that's what the bacteria is eating. And then you're saying that demulcents are really good to help for this whole scenario, your marshmallow and so on. And those are, Matthew was finding that also helps with the extracellular matrix. So as far as herbs that you are suggesting, the demulcents are really good. And then just anything that adds more fiber and more plant material to your diet, more phytochemicals, so like your nettles and so on. Then what role would anti-inflammatory herbs play? Like licorice or everyone, I guess it's probably a couple years now, but everyone's talking about turmeric, as like an anti-inflammatory. You can just take current turmeric and then it gets rid of your inflammation. But it's not real. Yeah. So what role are herbs like turmeric? What do they have in this scenario? And are there other herbs that you would suggest as like a general thing for being healthier, like reducing inflammation? Yes.
I say get the herbs in, get them in, and preferably get them in as spices.
Yeah. Okay.
Foods. There's something about taking that whole entire herb, that whole entire plant, where those individual phytonutrients work together synergistically that give us more benefit than if it's an isolated compound that we're getting in a supplement, or even, in my humble opinion, if it's been steeped or if it's been tinctured, although there's definitely benefit to both of those as well. So I say get them in. Turmeric is a great, powerful anti-inflammatory. It helps to nourish the microbiome, that which is not absorbed. It works synergistically if we do it with freshly cracked pepper, as most of us herbalists know, and or perhaps some good high quality oil like ghee or olive oil or avocado oil or something like that. It helps it to be absorbed more thoroughly, but it doesn't matter if it's not absorbed. It's still going to be nourishment for the microbiome in a positive way. Ginger, its first cousin, is a powerful anti-inflammatory respiratory tonic. Let's see, we have rosemary, which supports the liver and helps to support the memory and our cognitive ability. And that can be taken in a tea or as food. Gram for gram, herbs have more fiber content, have just as much fiber content as beans do. So we want to take in, they're like super, all herbs are superfoods, all spices are superfoods. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Cool.
Another way I'd like to get my herbs in are, I always recommend that people increase their water. I want you to get 2 liters, if not 3 liters of water a day. And so why not infuse a carminative if your concern is bloating? Or why not infuse an adaptogen or some other medicine, depending on what, on that unique person's constitution and what could be a benefit of them. And then this is the tea that you drink like water. We don't want to sweeten it too much. We just want them to just have the herbal tea. And then they can drink it in the morning. They can have their daytime tea, and then they can have their evening tea, depending on, if they need a nervine at night to kind of help them to get, because sleep, we didn't even talk about sleep, but that's one of the foundations. And so is movement and exercise.
Yeah.
Creating an anti-inflammatory life, right? So, so there are different, they could do yerba mate and black tea in the morning. Those are very rich in phytonutrients. They're healing, and they help to lift you up a little bit so that you can get that exercise in the middle of the day. And there's nothing wrong with taking a nervine. A lot of nervines can overlap with carminatives or adaptogens in the evening. And add that to it so that you are super powering, because we want diversity. We want all the colors, those red vegetables, those yellow vegetables, those purple vegetables, or herbs, or spices, or fruits. They all bring forth their unique healing potential. So we want to make sure we're getting from all of a good diversity. We don't want to eat the same four foods a day, every day. And we want 30 different ones a week. So we want the diversity, and they can mix many different types. I mean, we learned about the synergistic effect as herbalists, because we're always prescribing, a combination of herbs. And we know that they potentiate one another as opposed to one herb or one plant individually. And so we can continue to do that from looking at herbs as a whole food that can be incorporated in the beverage or as a spice.
Wonderful.
That's amazing.
All great recommendations. And thanks again for really breaking down that inflammation factor, because I feel like now I have like a better understanding of it. But I was wondering, just as like a final question, as somebody who's a traveler and nomadic healer, do you have any tips for folks that are on the road and trying to stay healthy? It can be difficult to carry all of your herbs and teas with you, or tinctures are heavy. Like, you go to a new city, you can't find a health food store. Like, what do you do to maintain these habits on the road?
So my people who know me the best kind of laugh at me, because I do show up with 2 full-size suitcases and 2 carry-ups. So if not 3, generally it's because I have some version of what I need, of what I feel that I need and want to share with people, that I'm excited about when it comes to healing and when it comes to medicine. So I travel with my own high-grade olive oil.
Nice.
Because you go someplace and their best is a salad, and then they want to put, salad dressing on it or something, and that negates the benefits. So I travel with my own high grade olive oil. What else? I have my own, I like to do my chai in the morning, and that helped me to reduce my caffeine intake. And with the chai, you have your ginger, and you can put your turmeric in it, and you can put your oil in it to help you, and your black pepper to help to activate that turmeric, and that ginger and cardamom. And what else can I put? Black tea and green tea.
Cinnamon, clove.
Cinnamon, cloves. That's right. So I have my chai.
Nice.
And sometimes my coconut, my dried coconut dairy as a result. So it's a beverage that traditionally comes with dairy. So I
Mhm.
usually have my morning beverage in it. And then also it's kind of funny, but I find my morning porridge and my morning smoothie is another good opportunity to get my 10 vegetables in each day wherever I'm at. Because sometimes I'm in South America, sometimes I could be in the Midwest, and it might take me a moment to get my balance to figure out what my sources are. So I have my favorite green powder that I
Nice.
like to use, which has lots of different, which I believe is high vibrational and has lots of different um, um, plants in it.
Mhm.
And I put that in my smoothie. And in my smoothie, I um, if I have the resources, and it'll be fruit in it. Sometimes I'll put some more oatmeal in it, hemp seeds, put some chia seeds in it. And you can do the same with your morning porridge. I mean, you can add your chia pudding, you can add your cinnamon, you can add your ginger, you can add your seeds and your nuts. You can add your dried fruits, your banana, your apple, and you can add a lot of other spices to that also, a lot of herbs to it too. And I've even taken the water from cook the oatmeal in chai, like a chai base, and it's so good, sweetened with just a little bit of maple syrup. It's like
Mhm.
the best pancake alternative you can imagine.
Yeah.
So, and it's rich in fiber, and it's a demulcent,
Yeah.
and it's going to help to keep you regular, because if you're constipated, then you are by definition toxic. So I travel with these things, so that I can take care of myself when I'm on the road. And if I mess up, then I just celebrate it and get back on the program the next day,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's
Awesome.
that's a crucial bit of advice there. Just get back on the horse.
Yes.
Get back on the horse.
Yes. Wow. Awesome. Yeah. Great. Great traveling tips.
Yeah, powders are crucial. We have a mushroom powder that has about 10 different mushrooms in it, and take that every day, and that's a good thing you can take with you.
Yeah.
Powders, yeah, you
Mhm.
just add them.
Mushrooms, I didn't even get to talk about mushrooms, but those are great adaptogens and immune modulators. And I went to Brazil last summer with my mushroom powder and my green powder, and there was a huge wave of Omicron happening. And we all caught it. I mean, it was like a tidal wave. It had us, and we were just like, what? The whole group, everybody had it. It came out of nowhere. And I've often had people who have followed, the advice on mushrooms, on green powders, on the anti-inflammatory, get back to me and say, this really helped me weather COVID. I felt like I had less achiness, less headache. I recovered quicker, less symptoms. And when I finally caught it myself in January, I felt the same way. There were folks half my age who were suffering, and as vaccinated, who seemed to have much more symptomology than I did. And I think it was my mushroom powder, which
Mhm.
I tried to get everybody, because I was the community doctor, because all my friends had it. We all had it at the same time.
Uh-huh.
And I'd be like, here's your smoothie. And there's something about folks, you give them something green to drink and their face turns up.
I know, right? So true.
Sometimes it depends on the community, right?
Yeah.
Other people get it. And
Yeah.
so, but they drank it, they respected me, they trusted me, and it had the
Awesome.
mushroom powder, it
Yeah.
had the green powder,
Mhm.
and coconut water, and yeah, and whatever else I could find local that was organic and fresh and nourishing.
I'm also just like thinking too, like with COVID, the powders are useful, but also for like elderly folks or folks who are sick and they don't have an appetite. Like, what an amazing way to get these phytonutrients into their system. I have
Yes.
these powders as a smoothie or on the oatmeal.
I tell them, they're like, what about Ensure? I'm like, no, for Ensure. Give them a green powder.
Oh my gosh. And sure. Yeah.
Make them a smoothie. And they're
Yeah.
like, doctor recommended. I'm like, well, don't ask me if you want my opinion. You ask me my
This
opinion.
doctor says green smoothie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning it.
Yeah, totally. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. Is there any Anything that we missed that you would love to share with the listeners today before we wrap up?
I want to remind us that the cornerstones of wellness are diet, our exercise, how much movement we bring, our sleep, and our stress management. And cultivating healthy patterns and all of this influences our genetic expression in a positive way so that we have a set point of higher well-being, of more resilience, more energy, more enthusiasm for life, more joy for community, more strength to help to co-create a planet that is worthy of, and we have the planet, but to create that which needs to be done in order to save this planet, a community that is worthy of this planet. And so I want to remind you that everything that we put into our mouths will either tip the scales towards wellness or towards dis-ease, and that our well-being is inextricably intertwined with that of our communities that we choose and of this planet. So we need to choose wisely and with the whole picture in mind. And thank you. Thank you, Isaac and AC, for this opportunity to be here today. It's been my joy.
Oh, thank you so much
Yeah.
for being here, Crystal. This has been awesome, and we appreciate you joining us. So enjoy the rest of your day.